I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yes, it does. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop, 10 a.m. right on the dot. It's Thursday, March 6th. We welcome you in to the Daily Puck Drop, broadcasting from the Puck Sports Studios, which is built by Limbach Lumber. They offer free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Contractors, did you hear that, by the way? They've got the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service. Why? Because they've been doing it since 1930, kiddos. Give Limbach Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbachlumber.com. All right, a newsy Thursday show today. Jerry Dipoto, we'll get into this. He can't help himself. He did an interview with the Athletic, Sam Blum. It's another good one. At least in the article, he admits that he's going to get roasted for the interview, which I'll be honest with you, I kind of respect that he admitted to. We're going to get the reaction from Mariners players to the Justin Turner comments from yesterday. Bob Nightingale, the USA Today. Ryan Divish, of course, who's on with us once a week, all courtesy there of Chalet Bowl. By the way, you can go listen to his full podcast if you're a Pucks Posse member. Please join today. Any financial concerns you have out there, email me, puck@pucksports.com. You'll get the full 50 minutes there from Divish yesterday. He got reaction from players inside that clubhouse yesterday. Now, they're not off the record. They were anonymous because they didn't want to reveal who they are for good reason, because the last time somebody spoke up in that organization, They got disciplined. They got slapped on the wrist, that being Cal Raleigh. So they're like, it's not worth it to put my name to it. But he had several players, and we're going to go through the quotes. I mean, they're just as damaging as Turner was yesterday. These are damaging. There is just a massive divide between that clubhouse and that ownership group in front office. So we'll get into that. Mike Garafolo will join us in about 15 minutes. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with Garafolo. He's got a lot going on today. But first and foremost, we'll get to his reaction to DK Metcalf, also Geno Smith's contract, where will Tyler Lockett land. But really the key things are DK's contract, trade, and then where do we stand with Geno Smith's contract. So one of the best in the business in covering the National Football League, Garafolo, with us in about 15 minutes or so. Michael-Shawn Dugar coming up around 10:45 or so. And we'll get Dugar's reaction to the DK trade. He has a story up at The Athletic right now, along with Diana Rossini, and where they give what Seattle wants. They want a first and a third is what the report around the league is. And then, of course, DK Metcalf wants a brand-new contract that's going to pay him like $30 million a year. And, of course, we wrap up every show with, Hey, What the Puck? So that's everything that's coming up on today's Daily Puck Drop. For those watching live and listening live, thank you. Reminder, you can go back and watch and listen to everything later up on YouTube. Just search Puck Sports. Also on all the podcast platforms, just search Puck Sports, whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And everything, including joining to become a Pucks Posse member, all up at pucksports.com. With that membership, you get all the free stuff that we do, supporting that, plus our weekly conversation with Ryan Divish, which we give you for members, get the entire podcast. We always play 15 or 20 minutes free every single week, but we give you the full 50 minutes of that podcast with Divish, both video and audio. Also, episode 2 of our NFL Draft Countdown series with Dane Brugler from The Athletic is available as well at pucksports.com for Pucks Posse members. So sign up today. And I'll keep plugging this brand new show going to be starting the week of Major League Baseball opening week. That didn't come out right. The opening week of Major League Baseball. The Mariners. Jesus, get it together. Let me take a sip of the coffee. My God, man. Pull your shit together, for God's sakes. All right. What do we got? Let's get into we want to start with Dipoto first or DK. I got on the rundown. Dipoto can't help himself. I just, because we're going to get a lot into the weeds here with DK today. First of all, the Mariners said this yesterday. Mariners should buy DK Metcalf and his agent whatever they want for having that come out yesterday, So the majority of people, I mean, we spent a good chunk on both of the topics yesterday on the show, and part of it is because we can go an hour and a half without taking commercial breaks. And so we gave you probably the best content, the best rundown and breakdown of it yesterday, just full all the way through. So we did spend a good chunk on both of these topics yesterday. But everyone's, for the most part in this industry will default to DK. So let me just start with Jerry Dipoto, because he always plays the victim. And that's one of his greatest strengths, is that he plays the victim. He's the victim. He doesn't get enough credit for the positives, and everyone always hammers him on the negatives. So he did an interview yesterday came out today with The Athletic. Sam Blum, who is, I think covers the Angels, but also does Major League Baseball for The Athletic. And it was just a sit-down interview, and Dipoto admitted at the end, I will get roasted for this interview. It's not the worst one in the world, but there's just some things in there that I wish I could talk to Jerry Dipoto and just say, listen to me. I know you truly want to say what's on your mind, but don't say what's on your mind. Just lie like everybody else does when you go up there, and just say and plead to the fan base and just promise them that you are doing whatever you can. And Sam points at it in the articles because that's what other GMs do. Plead that we're doing everything we can to win a championship. Here was some of the highlights of the quotes that I want to read from the Athletic story that was done by Sam Blum. Jerry Dipoto saying, quote, very few, if any, of the great teams that were able to sustain, very few of them weren't built on a foundation of draft, sign, develop, or trade. That's what we've communicated to our fans for a decade. We feel like we're closer to that goal than we've ever been. We're just not moving at a pace that is universally accepted, and I understand the frustration. Okay, I mean, it's 10 years. It's 10 years. Well, I guess going into your 10th year. One playoff appearance in the 9 years that he's been the general manager / president of the organization. I mean, what pace do you want? I mean, how much longer does he want to sustain this? And yes, has he drafted well? In areas, yes, he has drafted well. I don't know about these position players. I know where they're rated, but I have no idea what they're going to turn out to be. The pitching has been great. His trades, though, some have been good, but a lot have been awful. His free agent signings, and maybe he can blame ownership, in large part have been terrible. With the money that he's been allocated, they've been bad. He went on to say to The Athletic, people want us to succeed. We want to succeed. Justin and I are accountable to every decision that we have made. We have taken responsibility for the bad ones, and frankly, early on, we got celebrated for the good ones. Now they are generally get swept under the rug and forgotten. The negativity from the general population over the offseason has been palpable. You just can't help to feel it. And this is what I don't understand about him at times. He wants credit for the good stuff he did. But that's just not how it works. It don't work that way. You don't get credit for it. What credit does he want? You've had one playoff appearance in 9 years. What do you want from that? Do you want a congratulations? Hey, good job. One playoff appearance in 9 years. And you have generally misspoken or lied to a fan base, you and the ownership, for the last several years, saying that you would, according to you, draft, develop, trade, sign. You haven't signed anyone. No one. You've signed no one of significance. You spin it off. Your big acquisition this offseason was Donovan Solano. I believe I got to go back and check. I believe the $15 million that the governor they put on themselves, I don't even think they've spent that. Think about that. They haven't spent $15 million. I think there's some college programs out there that have spent more money on NIL. He went on to say to The Athletic, our story is a pretty good story, but it's been overrun right now by the general desire that we go do something more. The big move, the grand slam, the big free agent. And maybe that'll happen at some point. Well, hey, great. We just didn't think this was the right time or the right group of players that fit for us. I don't want to continue to constantly apologize to people for not winning the World Series in 79, 89, and 99. Why he chose those years, I don't know. I understand the history of the Mariners. We can't erase 48 years. And that's where I think he and this organization become immensely frustrating, because they said this was the time. In fact, it was last year, and actually it was 2 years ago. It may have been 3 years ago, that it was the time that when they got there, based on the, quote, reimagining of the roster, they would go out and spend, that they would go out and break the bank. And then they didn't do it. They didn't do anything. It's not just this year. It's the last 3 off seasons where they have done absolutely nothing to make this team better. Now, this part I'm going to read is from Sam Blum, who is the author or reporter for The Athletic, who wrote this story and interviewed Jerry Dipoto. And this is his writing. These are his words, and then I'll chime in here when Dipoto has a comment. From Sam, he writes, "When it comes to winning a championship, Dipoto tries to look at it pragmatically. Of course, he wants a World Series ring, but he doesn't want to be a singularly obsessed with that goal. Rather, he focuses on the process that will put them in a position to win it all. Because as always, this is Dipoto, you can't control the final outcome." And I think therein lies the biggest rub. And I've said this many, many times when it's come to ownership. The infamous interview that Paul Sylvie did with John Stanton last spring training, where John Stanton said basically the same thing. Hey, we don't really want to go all in because we don't want to be the Kansas City Royals. We don't want to win a World Series and then for the next few years be irrelevant. And that's the type of attitude that permeates through that entire organization, from top to bottom. From John, and I just shake my head when I hear people defend John Stanton. Oh, he wants to win. He doesn't. Not like you think he wants to win. He doesn't. He does not. And I think everybody from ownership to the front office decision makers, they don't have a burning desire to win it all. Just don't. They don't prove it. They prove it. Prove it. They don't. It doesn't keep them up at night. What keeps this ownership group up at night is, how do we have more profit? How does what we do affect the bottom line of our business? That's what keeps them up at night. How many more of the cashless or grab and go places do we put in T-Mobile? That's what keeps them up at night. Not what free agent can we go get to help us win a championship. Ryan Divish also yesterday got in the clubhouse and talked to players to get reaction to the Bob Nightingale story that he interviewed Justin Turner, when Justin Turner just took a flamethrower to the entire organization and really directing it at ownership. And again, I'll say this about Divish: he hates compliments. He gets several players to tell him, give him these quotes because they trust him. He's the best at the business in doing it, covering that team, because the players trust him. And that's what beat reporters have got to accomplish, is a trust between them and the player. His goal is to write stories and cover them. Not so much offer an opinion, but just cover them. And he got several players to react to Justin Turner comments to Bob Nightingale. Of course, they're anonymous because, one, they don't want to feel the wrath of what would happen to them if they put their name on it. Turner, and he said this yesterday, and by the way, he wrote it in the paper again, SeattleTimes.com. Justin Turner, according to Divish, had a larger offer on the table to join Seattle than he did with the Cubs, and he elected not to go to Seattle. He chose to go to the Cubs. Turner's comments from Divish. This is what Divish wrote. This is Divish's words. Inside the clubhouse, Nightingale's column, or more specifically Turner's comments, had circulated through the players from last year's team. Divish writes, they were met with a metaphorical and even literal shrug of the shoulders. He basically said This is now a quote from a player. Quote, he basically said the same things to me earlier, said one Mariners player. Divish went on to say players didn't want to say anything on the record. It wasn't worth the scolding they'd receive, according to Ryan Divish. He asked one player, was Turner wrong for what he said? One Mariners player inside the clubhouse said, not one bit. Divish went on to talk in the story. The players know that the organization doesn't do enough. This isn't a conversation or belief that's been limited to this offseason. One player in discussions with Divish when he asked that question said, isn't it the same thing, or isn't it every year that the organization doesn't do enough? Another separate veteran player in that clubhouse. Lastly, another player inside the Mariners clubhouse to Ryan Divish said the following, quote, I would think any intellectual baseball fan that's been following this team would see what has been happening. It's pretty obvious in regards to this organization and this ownership not doing enough to spend money. I don't know how many more examples this group needs. In fact, I don't really know how ownership shows their face down there at times. They don't like you. They don't trust you. They don't think you're serious about winning. It's not just other people in baseball anymore, John Stanton and Chris Larson. It's the people that you employ, your 26-man roster. Maybe not all believe this, but I would say 90% do. They don't think you're doing enough. They don't think you're good enough at your job. They are telling you through the media, because they don't want to say it publicly anymore. They don't want to be reprimanded by you, because that's what you did last year. You reprimanded them last year, John and Chris. You reprimanded, well, it was 2 years ago. You reprimanded Cal Raleigh. You scolded him for speaking his mind. But then on the other side of your mouth, you say, well, we want our players to speak their mind. You don't. You only want them to speak their mind when it's something positive about the organization. If it's critical of the organization, you don't want to hear from them. It's the whole shut up and dribble. Just play. They are venting the frustration that they all have inside that clubhouse through Bob Nightingale, through Ryan Divish, and anybody else that can listen. And why you guys don't listen, I don't know. It's an absolute mystery to anyone that follows and covers this baseball team. It has led, obviously, to a revolt from fans who are upset with you. But your own players are upset with you. The people that you are asking to go out every night and play hard are mad at you, because they know you're not doing enough. These guys, coaches, trainers, everyone, busting their asses behind the scenes to get better. All they have asked for the last 3 years is, can you give us some more help? And your reaction, John and Chris and Jerry and Justin, is, how about Donovan Solano? How about Jorge Polanco? I mean, it's just not good enough. And to have the reaction that Jerry did today, and I know what Jerry, and because Turner kind of defended him a bit. Listen, he can't go out and spend money, so he's got to make all these trades in order to create money. There is obviously some truth to that. But he does play the victim a lot, does Jerry Dipoto. Wants credit for things that happened in the beginning of his tenure. But he says the things that you just shake your head at times is, well, we're just not really into the business of going all in. I mean, because that's the heart of what he told Sam Blum of The Athletic. No, it's more important for us to just have this like long 10-year, 15-year run of winning 54% of their games. Because in the beginning of the article, if you go read it, theathletic.com, Sam Blum. Because in the beginning of the article, which I didn't read the quote, because I think everyone is tired of 54%, is he basically said the same thing that he probably uttered last year. And that was, you just don't understand. Mariner fans, what he was saying is, you're just too dumb to understand the 54% comment. That's what he said. And, if you go back and you remember, I'm not going to read the quote of the 54%, but Dipoto to Sam Blum of The Athletic. And when Sam asked him, hey, do you understand how fans that didn't compute with a lot of people when you uttered that 54% comment? And this is what Jerry's quote was. And again, I'll add my own commentary to this. What I think he's saying is that we are too dumb to understand it. That we're too dumb to understand the 54% comment. He said, quote, people obviously didn't understand it the way I expressed it. My guess is that 98% of the people didn't actually listen to it. They just read it off a tweet. It is what it is. Maybe they wouldn't have understood it any better had they heard the whole thing. And that's on me for poorly communicating what I think is a simple idea. See, that's why people fucking hate him. Right there. I'm smarter than you. You're too dumb to understand what I'm doing for you. You should be on your knees thanking me for what I've done for you. It is what it is. Maybe they wouldn't have understood it any better had they heard the whole thing, because you're too dumb to listen to the whole thing. Remember, because your attention span is 2 seconds with, Twitter. And that's on me for poorly communicating it. What I think is a simple idea. You're too dumb. He is immensely frustrating. All right, DK Metcalf. Apparently he changed his name. He wants out. He would like to be traded. What would the asking price be? There's reports out there from the Athletics saying a first and third round pick. That was what A.J. Brown. That's what the Titans got for A.J. Brown. What about Geno Smith? A contract. We got a few minutes here with Mr. Newsbreaker. Ladies and gentlemen, all brought to you by Zogs on Fox Island, also Hartley and Hartley Insurance. It is the one and only. It's Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network, who joins us right now here from the Puck Sports Studios built by Limbeck Lumber. Hello, sir. How are you?
Josh Joby is back with the Seahawks, according to his agency.
Josh Joby. Let's go.
Joby.
Well, that's the move that gets you going. That moves the needle. Huh? That's the one that people were waiting for you to break it down. Is it Joby or Job? I can't remember.
Is it Job?
I think it's Job.
All right. Well,
whatever. Job. Hey, you know what? Tomato.
There you go. Josh Job back with the Seahawks. I was hoping, I came on with breaking news. I was hoping for,
Well, how about some other breaking news? Okay. Where did we get with DK Metcalf? Why did he go out yesterday and say, I'm done. I want to trade?
Yeah, I mean, it's time to get a new deal. You've been asking for quite some time. Let me get myself framed up here. You've been asking for quite some time about a possibility of a trade, and now to the point where, it's time to redo him. It's time to pay him. So the next team is going to have to pay him, and they're looking. What are they looking for? You're going to ask me that, right? If I say they're looking for a 1, the would tell you, hell no, we're not giving up a top 10 pick. But I mean, if it's who the Eagles are drafting, if the Eagles pick it, the Eagles are not in it. I'm just taking the last pick in the first round. That's a lot different, right? So this whole they're looking for a 1. Well, it depends who they're talking to. Whether
not all ones are equal.
Correct. Yes. So,
okay. So what it's the Athletic has reported it's a first and third. This is what they're they're going to get
something in the middle. How about a 2?
Yeah, because I understand the thinking of it, because that's what A.J. Brown received, or that's what the Titans received from the Eagles was a first and a third round pick. Was there something that happened on the combine? How long has this been brewing? Has there been discontent between the two that has developed here recently? Is this about the Seahawks don't want to pay him as a top wide receiver? Because that's what it read to me.
Yeah, I mean it's probably a little bit of everything here. It's been a lot with DK. I mean, there have been some moments along the way. And when you trade, if the guy is that good, you'll put up with anything and you'll pay him anything, right? If he fits in that much with your culture, you'll do whatever it takes to make it work.
Expand on that, though. But expand on that. It's been a lot. I mean, we see it on the field. I mean, I see it on the field. But,
yeah, you see it on the
but
field.
Does it carry over off the field with him?
Yes. I mean, in certain areas, I don't. It's not the worst that I've ever heard of a wide receiver, though. You know what I mean? So that's why when you would ask me along the way, I'd go, it's wide receivers come with a lot of this stuff, right?
They got a diva quality to him.
Yeah, but he's not the worst offender in these areas. Not even close, right?
Okay.
And we know the history of the position and what we've seen over the years. So, when you're in the middle of a contract that you've already done and he's producing and you've got bigger concerns, like it's and you want to stay competitive, it's all good. Now you get to a point where it's like, oh, we got to pay him again. All right, well, it's what happened with Odell Beckham with the Giants. It was like it went on for a while, and it's like, we paid him, and now we can get somebody to take this contract off our hands, and that now we'll get the exit strategy. So it's that's kind of where it is, and you've got teams that are willing to take them, and you've got other needs that you need to fill, and you got to figure out what you're doing at the quarterback position too, which I'm still not positive that Geno Smith is going to get another deal from the Seahawks. Whether that's getting moved in the near future or getting or being let go after the season, not let go, but allowed to go sign elsewhere. I think that this is a transitional period in the franchise right now. And some of the bigger pieces, it started with Tyler Lockett, which is not a surprise, but there was no real possibility of a renegotiation there. It was like, he's going to be moving on soon. So Lockett gone, DK potentially gone in the near future. And then who knows what happens with the quarterback. I know there's interest elsewhere. There's not enough teams that have quarterbacks. So we'll see. What
teams, what do you have the name of teams that would be interested in DK, specific teams that are interested in him?
Yeah, there's no question Pete Carroll's interested. No doubt. And I heard that at the combine, that he had let it be known that he would be interested if he was available. So the Raiders are 1,000,000% in the running here. That's one of them. You've got history in Carolina with both the general manager and the head coach. So would not surprise me at all. I know people are talking about the Packers as well. I'm sure that there's interest there as well. So those are the three teams just off the top of my head and just off basically what I've heard now in the last couple of days that I would put in the mix.
So when they were the picture in the video or the picture of Pete in first class, because he had to sit and coach, talking to McDonald and Schneider, they hammering out the details for DK right then and there.
I don't think so. Because remember, it still had to be a conversation up to yesterday to figure out what the path was going to be here. So no, not at that moment. But it's you will go back and remember the combine with Pete and the shirt off and all that stuff and the relationship between the two of them. And when you're starting anew in a place where there's not a lot of talent,
right,
and you don't have much time, not that he's going to die. I don't mean to make it sound like that. Sorry. But what I mean is, Pete's not in it for 10 years. I mean, he might be, who knows? This guy's eternal. But you want to get going as soon as humanly possible. So this guy's available. I think there's clearly interest there.
But the Raiders are not giving up the 6th pick. What are they in the second round? What do they have? Is it the 37th overall?
Sure. Right. That would be more realistic. Yeah.
More realistic would be the 37th overall.
Because I saw this yesterday. Oh my goodness. Oh, the Joe Tooney. They only gave up a 4th because you got to take him on.
And the money.
You got to pay him.
Yeah.
He's going to be 33. What do you think you should get for Joe Tooney?
Well, I was looking, because I never thought it was going to be the A.J. Brown deal. I always thought that
A.J. Brown was on his
rookie
second deal, the first extension. This is DK's second.
Yeah.
Like it's you can't ignore where guys are in their career. That is an enormous part of the equation.
Well, I look at this is why you bring up the Raiders. If it were going to be a deal with the Raiders, one, you get him out of the conference, you reunite him with Pete Carroll. By the way, DK with the visor would look great in the silver and black. But is the DeAndre Hopkins trade when the Cardinals? It was a 2nd and a 4th round pick in David Johnson.
And how old was he at the time?
Well, he was, I'm going to go check the age, but he had put up way better numbers in his first 6 seasons. He was across the board better in DK. And remember, those were 3 straight seasons. He was an all-pro leading up to that trade. I mean, DK's never been an all-pro.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember the David Johnson part of it, because was it like they were doing the Cardinals a favor by taking the deal on, if I recall correctly? Because it was a huge, at the time, it was like, whoa, because that was right when the running back market dipped and he had gotten a huge deal.
Hopkins was the same age. He was 27 when they dealt him, just like DK.
Right. So, but I'm saying you got another factor in there that, yeah, I mean, and there could be some of them in here. But you don't think that if the Seahawks traded both Geno and DK to the Raiders, that Pete wouldn't love that?
Do you think that's on the table, trading both Geno and DK Metcalf to the Raiders?
No.
God, why can't you just say yes? That would be great.
I mean, what's coming back? It's obviously not Max Crosby.
God, it'd be great if it was Max Crosby. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think
the new general manager, John Schneider, would not want his first move to be trading away and a phenomenal player and like a Raider to his core? I mean, the fan base would turn on that guy in 5 seconds before the first game's played. Yeah,
so you could put a percentage on it. You can just say more likely than not DK gets moved. More
likely than not. Yes. There's no question in my mind. No question.
No question in your mind. So, so this is over then. Like it's
so
done.
he wants to be traded, and they allow once you get the team, like we saw it with Debo. Once John Lynch said we're going to allow him to explore it. That means bye, right? Like as soon as the team says okay, guys, you can explore it, right? At some point, you're going to get now. Compare it to, the Jets have given permission to Devontae Adams to okay. Right. Who's taking on $36 million and giving up compensation for that? Like this one is a lot different than that, right? This is a guy who still has his prime years, some of his prime years ahead of him. So
more
to me, there's no question. Once the horse is out the barn and gone at this point. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. It's you're giving up. It's
and I don't know that it happens this next week if it's something closer to the draft. But once a player requests and a team says, okay, the Matthew Stafford was a different deal. They never told him they told him he can go talk numbers. That was a bit of a different deal, but this is.
What about the reaction? I'm sure you've talked to people within the organization. What about the reaction from them that this trade request from DK's people came out on the same day that they released, and they did it separately with Tyler Lockett? How did that affect them, you think?
I don't think it did. I mean, people knew for a while. First of all, I put Lockett with the Raiders too as well. I mean, I don't know if the DK,
everyone's going to the Raiders.
Yeah, if the DK trade happens before that, maybe that like if he gets traded there, like come back to me and ask me about Lockett. But I Lockett to Vegas, from what I heard back at the combine, was almost a certainty. Just once he gets released, just like you could start to So we'll see.
Could they both end up there?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for Lockett at this point. I'm guessing. I mean, Tutu Atwell from the Rams just got 10 today, which is stunning to a lot of people. Stunning. Like as soon as that came down, it was like that can't be right. And then it was no, it's 5 and 5, 5 signing bonus, 5 base salary, and fully guaranteed. So Lockett's got to be worth close to that. I understand where he is in his career, but he's got to be worth close to that at this point. So we'll see.
Okay, you touched on...
And the Raiders, by the way, have nothing, right? They have tight ends, but they have Jacoby Myers, but virtually nothing at the receiver spot.
And they got rid of one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
That didn't work out last year.
Oh, yeah.
How about Antonio Pierce has got to be sitting back on?
Yeah.
So now we're chasing Matthew Stafford. We're going to trade for DK Metcalf. We're going to add,
you guys gave me Gardner Minshew.
Gave me nothing.
All right, Geno Smith, you kind of brought it up there. Give me the line again. You don't think it's a certainty that he's back?
You're going to just ask me the odds already. What percentage? Because you love percentages.
Well, because here's my thing. I talked about this yesterday. I love the USA Today pie charts. Remember the old school? I just love the pie charts. One, because I love pie, and then I love charts.
Yeah.
What are the percentages that he's back?
Yeah. So here when you do this to me, I live in a world of 0, 100, or everything in the middle is just the same, right? Yeah. It's like it's not even a binary; it's a trinary scale, I guess.
Sure.
Here, and then everything in between is 1. I don't know. You asked me, is it more likely than not that DK is gone? I said yes. It's more likely than not DK is gone. Is it more likely than not that Geno is back? Yes, it's more likely than not that Geno Smith is back. but I can't give you 100% on that.
But it's not like they came out of that combine. And we're like, no, he's our guy. He's our guy. Like, and you've been in this business long enough. We've talked about this before. Yeah. They're all, I mean, love them to death, but they're all professional liars. I mean, they have to. This is part of the job.
Pete Carroll was at the combine saying, we don't intend to trade Russell Wilson.
Right. And then it happens.
A minute and a half later,
he's out. So I don't care what they said about Geno at the combine. I really don't. It doesn't mean anything to me until he's actually here. But what is the market for him? Are there teams calling Seattle about Geno?
I don't know. I don't have the call logs, but it wouldn't surprise me. You know what? Let me rephrase. Yes. I'm confident in that. At least one team did. I know that. At least one team. And listen, a GM, I remember Jerry Reese when he with the Giants all the time would say, you guys, it would blow your mind if
it's not another Josh Jobe signing, is it?
No,
it's working on.
No,
I know you got to go in a couple minutes.
No. The hell was I saying? You dropped an F-bomb when I was waiting to come on here, by the way. I'd never heard you drop an F-bomb.
Oh, yeah. Before. I don't swear much on this.
But you hate the Mariners.
I hate the guy that runs the team. I just more than anything more. If you the number whatever the top sports hate you could have, that's my number one sports hate.
100%.
God, I hate him. Fucking hate him.
Yeah.
All right. So confident that teams have called. You're confident that teams have called Geno, and you know at least one team that's called him.
Oh, I was telling you, Jerry Reese, when he was the GM of the Giants, he goes, you guys would have stories for days if you could just sit there and look at our call logs. Just people call about everybody all the time. And then you guys put out one story, and it's like becomes this big thing. I think that may have been the Jeremy Shockey year where Shockey wanted to get and did get traded eventually. Like they won all they did was win the Super Bowl without him, and that was it. Like he was convinced that the organization had turned against him.
So would you divulge the one team?
No.
You have to ask. Well, I think people can probably guess who that one team is. Okay, where are we at with contracts with him? It's been quiet on that front. Like contract talk with him, there's just been nothing out there. Is there anything there?
Not that I've heard of, but there is. I mean, and that's one way that this could go, right? Where you start to, I've seen this before. Like you start to have contract talks, and you realize like we're not in the same universe. And then you go, well, there's an option to trade it. Well, let's go that route, right? Like so that potentially could be the way it goes. I'm not saying it's going that way. I'm just saying potentially that's one way it could go. But I interviewed both John Schneider and Mike McDonald at the combine, and both spoke highly of Geno and said that they would like him or he's our quarterback or however they phrased it in so many words. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see a lot of things happen over the next, and the DK thing adds another wrinkle to it. Somebody might call and inquire about the possibility of both. We'll
how quickly do you think the DK thing comes to fruition?
I told you. I said it could take. I don't know if it's the next week.
I can't remember,
or if it's through the sometimes leading up to the draft. Could be. If you're asking me, just my hunch, my guess is it happens quickly.
Hold on, I'm writing this down because
quicker rather than later.
My guess, it happens quickly. I need to be really good at shorthand. Are you good at shorthand?
Is that still a thing?
I think so. I think it's still a thing. I'm glad. I know you got to go, right?
No.
Oh, okay. You're good. Oh, a few more minutes with you. All right. Then I'll table some things, and then I want to get to the biggest thing I want to talk to you about today is Starbucks. Sam Darnold's future.
What
do you think?
What do I think?
It's a long, pregnant pause.
Because I've gone several different ways on this one, right? I thought it was going to be done to Minnesota earlier this week.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, he's not going back to Minnesota. Now it's like, well, he could be back to Minnesota eventually. Like, they can only do what they did last year, which is a 1-year commitment. They've got JJ McCarthy that they want to commit to eventually. And they would like to get Sam Darnold on a reasonable, in their minds, deal versus there's options out there from some teams who need quarterbacks and who might miss out on some other quarterbacks. And all of a sudden, might be more willing to invest in him multi-year because they have to get somebody eventually. So, it's at this point, I would educated guess, I would say he's back in Minnesota on a 1-year deal. Educated guess.
Ooh,
but I know that that's not preferable to him. Like,
no.
He would like a multi-year deal. Feels like he's proved it, but in the end, he may have to have that. Not he may have to.
Please say there's some breaking news. DK traded.
No.
Has he ever been linked to Seattle?
Has he ever been linked to Seattle? No.
Okay.
I mean, if Geno moved out, I know that there'd be interest in a number of quarterbacks in coming in.
Sure.
I would put Darnold in that group.
Okay. I'm just back to DK for a second. I know you mentioned the Raiders, or there'll be several teams that'll be interested in him. Packers at 23. There's been a lot of buzz about the Packers.
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the teams I mentioned earlier. I would.
Did you mention them?
Yeah. Carolina, Green Bay, Las Vegas. If you're giving me 3 teams to play, like those are the 3 that I'm playing right now. You take the field outside of that. So we'll see. Right. But then now you're getting into the territory of is that a 1 that counts? Like you're looking for a first round pick? Like, well,
just 23. Yeah. I mean, I did anything in the first round.
No. I'm saying this when I hear, they're looking for a 1, that never applies to the top 10 ever in any draft, right? Like they're looking for a 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Throw those out. At what point is it like the team trading away the 1 goes, so now you're at 23. It's like, that might be reasonable at that point,
Okay. It's very newsy. God, it's a newsy NFL. God, it's just.
What do you want to know? Quarterbacks. We were talking about
Rodgers.
Rodgers?
Well, I don't care about Rodgers. I want Rodgers to go away. I mean, I don't know. But
he's going to the Giants. Is that far enough away from you?
Is he really going to the Giants? Is that where he's going to go?
Educated guess at this point, yes.
Man, why are the Giants doing that? Why? Just why?
Because it's what time did the bars close in Seattle?
Yeah, 1:15.
Okay, so it's 12:45, and the house lights are getting close to coming on. Okay, that's why.
Hey, are there chances? Let's go back to the pie chart. Geno, Lockett, and DK all in Vegas. God, that'd be awesome, wouldn't that be? Jesus, man, it'd be a reunion.
Oh God, Geno, DK, and Lockett all in there. Throw Marshawn in there. Why not?
Well, he lives there.
Yeah,
he lives there. If they were to trade Geno, would they have to get a quarter? Well, I mean, probably not going to get a quarterback back, are they? For whoever they're trading him to.
No, but they got Geno, and he wound up being a guy. He still is at this point, as of this conversation, still the guy. So, I think John Schneider trusts his ability to go find one. There are a few in the draft later on. Outside of the first couple of, listen, somebody, we always look at this draft as like, there's 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10. Well, one of them's going to hit. Mm-hmm. The other 2 probably aren't, right? Well, now you're just spreading it out. Now you got 3 to 4 in the first round. One of them's going to hit. Just a matter of finding. I say that there could be a miss in there, but
hey, that who is screaming? Is that one of the girls?
This microphone's too good. That's Vivian.
Screaming.
So, did you watch the Oscars? Oh, we're going too long now.
You got to go. When you got to go, just tell me you got to go.
This is a great story. Did you watch?
Yes, I watched it.
Okay, you saw the opening act of the Wicked.
Yeah.
The girls are into Wicked. My daughter was big time into the Oscars last year. There was a lot of Barbie. So she would watch clips, and the next day, Daddy, who won? The Barbie went. No, Barbie didn't win. And so the Oscars starts at 7 on the East Coast, which is crazy. Couldn't believe it started so early, and they're still up. And I was like,
so early?
Huh?
That's early for you?
7?
Yeah.
Yeah, it usually starts at 8:30 sometimes.
Okay.
But I guess they felt like they're going to try to capture the audience earlier. So it starts with this number, and I go, they're going to love this. Girls, come here. They were getting dressed or showered. Come here. So they're watching it, and my wife comes in, and she's crying. My wife is crying, and the kids are loving it. And it's all the. So then they cut to they go to knock on the door to get, hey, Conan, you're up. You saw this, right?
Yeah.
And it's the Demi Moore from the movie, and she's shooting up. And I know nothing about the movie. Okay, nothing.
It looks crazy.
So if I knew what was like, I'd be, oh no. Like, so she's in there, and the kids start. My wife is screaming, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" You know, and then you got one of these, right? Like you can't, you know. And it's the thing is freezing because the TVs don't turn off quickly or do anything quickly anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I need a new TV because I need to update my operating system now. So the kid and Conan starts climbing out of the and they're freaking out. We get a text from my daughter, pre-K 3, that they have this smart board and they get to pick what to play. And the teacher's like, I picked the opening of the Oscars to play.
Oh, God.
My daughter ran in the bathroom and shut the door and she was screaming.
Yeah, she's doing it now. You guys are watching. You're playing it up there again. For God's sakes.
My wife sends me the text. She goes, I turned it on. They're watching The Wicked. And then she goes running into the bathroom and closes the door and starts screaming.
Oh, my God. God.
We're like, well, what the thing that came on next after that on the Oscars was Demi Moore shooting up at 7:05 on a Sunday night.
And who doesn't like to see that? I mean, come on, you live in Jersey, New York, for God's sakes. You see it all the time on the streets.
So I thought that was funny. Like we traumatized the kid, and she's
good for him.
Horrified in the middle of.
All right, newsy day, man. You got a lot of information in that one, man. You packed a lot in right there.
Let's see how much of it actually winds up being.
I don't care. I throw everything
that
up
time of
against
year.
the wall. That time of year. You're the best. All right, we'll be following you, Mike Garafolo, on Twitter for the very latest. Thanks, Mike.
You got it. See you, Puck.
Yeah, there he is, Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, brought to you by Hartley and Hartley Insurance, your trusted family-owned insurance experts in the Puget Sound area since 1978. Honesty, fairness, integrity. Contact Jamie Hartley, 253-565-8700. Also, Zogs on Fox Island, perfect spot to grab a cold beer, hang out with friends, catch the game. March Madness coming up. Great spot to catch March Madness. Check out Zogs on Facebook and Instagram for their hours and event times. We'll get Dugar on here in just a quick second, but man, a lot of news there from Garafolo. Just to, if you're just coming in late, just to recap what Mike said, we got the very latest. It was an abbreviated little visit with Mike because he's working on a bunch of other stuff about DK and Geno Smith. Said no doubt, and again, some of this is probably fairly obvious, but when you have a reporter with good knowledge, put pen to paper and put it out there that said no doubt Pete Carroll is interested in DK Metcalf. That was a huge topic at the combine. He said 1,000% that they're in him. He said DK Metcalf trade more likely than not, no question about it. He also said Tyler Lockett going to Vegas. For those that they talked at the combine, almost felt like a certainty, that it's a certain thing to happen. The timeline for DK to be traded, in which Garafolo said it's more likely than not he will be traded. I know and again, listen, all the cards on the deck, there's still a chance that there's a deal that works out and he stays. Everyone understands that. On a timeline that DK Metcalf gets traded, Garafolo saying, according to who he's talked to, my guess is it happens quickly. On the idea that Geno Smith could be traded. That he said it's not a foregone conclusion that Geno Smith is back with Seattle. Teams have calling Seattle about trading for Geno Smith. Garafolo saying, yes, I'm confident that teams have called about Geno Smith. In fact, I know one team that has already inquired about trading for Geno Smith. Really newsy information, packed information. If you're coming in late, check it out later on the podcast. Whatever your favorite podcast platform is, it will be part of the Daily Puck Drop for Apple and Spotify and Amazon and all that. Separated. It will be a separate podcast up on YouTube. Just search Puck Sports there on YouTube. Well, we go from a national perspective now to a local perspective. He joins us every single week. It is Michael-Shawn Dugar. We like to call it the Dugar Report. It's all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Of course, he's writes for The Athletic. He's got a story up there today about DK Metcalf, along with Diana Rossini, that we're going to get to it in a second. Co-host of the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast with our guy, Chris Kidd. Again, brought to you by Georgetown's Tavern Beer. Their brand new beer, easy drinking, domestic style lager, made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops, 4.2%, brewed by our good friends at Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's Pale Ale and Bodhisattva IPA. And Michael-Shawn Dugar joins us from the Limback Lumber Studios. Mike, thank you for doing it as always. Let's jump right into it. Your report that you had out that came out yesterday along some of your colleagues at The Athletic, including Diana Rossini, saying that the Seahawks asking price is a first and a third. That would mirror what the Titans received from A.J. Brown. What's kind of the latest on that front, Mike?
Honestly, that Diana had it this morning, and that really sounded like to me we don't want to trade him asking price, which makes sense. Like, yeah, let's set it high, blow us away if we're gonna give you our 27-year-old, outside receiver who's like basically you can write in ink 900 yards and like 4 or 5 touchdowns a year. At 27, I think he turns 28 in December. A guy who's a hard worker, all this good stuff. Like, yeah, if you want that, go ahead, blow us away. Otherwise, we are not like inclined to give him away. You look at John Schneider doesn't have a long track record of just like giving away premier talent, which is good. You don't want to have a track record of that. But you look at the times that he has done it, whether it's Russ or Frank Clark, like John got good compensation back in both instances. I didn't like the Russ compensation in real time, but John proved to be a little smarter than me, at least in that instance. And I think DK is going to be the same. Like, yeah, why wouldn't you start with, give us your first, especially if you're a team in the back half of the first round. Give us your first. Give us pick 25 if you're Houston, 22 if you're the Chargers. I don't think that they'll get any of those. But yeah, that's a price that says we don't need to do anything. We don't need to give him up. So that's kind of how I read that.
What do you think led to him coming out yesterday and he and his agent demanding a trade?
First, disregard for Tyler Lockett. That would be one. I felt so bad. He just stepped all over that announcement. You see, just from the Seahawks Twitter, socials account, they had all of this like pre-recorded Tyler Lockett content, just kind of send him off. They had his highlights. They had a whole video sit down of all the people talking about how much they love him. And it was like, nope, DK's day. But anyway, the second thing, I mean, Puck, this really all comes back to money for me. Really, we've seen guys ask for trades and then stay where the hell they at, and overlook all the reasons they gave up that trade when they get the bag. We just watched Brandon Ayuk do it. We saw Budda Baker do it with the Cardinals. Gave him a new contract after he axed out. And these are public asks too, so you deal with your fan base knowing you didn't want to be here either, and all of your teammates versus privately doing it, which is a totally different level of trade request in my mind. Like when you tell your teammates, like, yo, I don't want to be with y'all no more. Now you have to deal with that. What helps you deal with that? Millions and millions of dollars.
Money solves anything, Mike.
Yeah, all them reasons that you say, maybe I don't like the training room. Maybe I'm tired of the quarterback. Maybe I'm tired of losing. You know what? Helps you deal with losing? $30 million a year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I always money doesn't buy you happiness. Okay, I agree to a point, but there is a point where money does provide happiness. All right.
Well, what, Puck, my amendment to that statement is usually, money can maybe not buy happiness, but it can make you happier. And that's really all most of us are seeking. It's like, right. It's always the pursuit of happiness. Like, can I just get happier than I currently am? Yeah. And you know what'll make DK happy, I'm sure, is $120 million over 4 years,
What do you think is, let me just ask you, you cover him and you cover the team. Do you think he will be traded?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been struggling with this all morning. My guess would be yes. Because I lean towards yes as of last night when I lean towards no. Because I do think that John would feel like he can recoup. Like he can do this. Like he can get a good player. He can fix the team without, like, we don't need DK to be successful. Do I agree with that assessment? No, I do not. But that would be my guess. Because like I said, with Russ and with Frank, like it's kind of the same thing. It didn't make sense to really get rid of either of those guys because of what you had on the roster at the time. Like Geno wasn't even on the roster at the time. You traded Russ. You just only get Drew Lock back. That seemed nuts. You had no pass rushers really on the edge when you get rid of Frank. And kind of still didn't, for years and years and years. But John felt he could do it. Felt he could replace him. So that's where I lean right now. Puck, honestly, if you ask me tomorrow after I talk to some more people, that could probably change. I personally,
and it's okay if it changes, right? Everyone can change.
Well, I wouldn't even do it, to be honest. Yeah. I wouldn't. Just because
you personally wouldn't do it.
Nah, I just feel like if you really want to win and you're trying to sell that, it's a hard sell for me. Honestly, it's a hard sell to say you want to win with how the roster is anyway. If you keep DK, I think it just gets a lot tougher if you do that. That's kind of my outlook on it.
Do you think their line, if they do trade him, Mike, their line of thinking is, because they've spent this entire offseason, right? We need to get, and Schneider talked about it, I think, at the Combine. We need to get back to where we were, and that's being physical, aggressive defense. The crowd at home is loud. We need that home field advantage back. We need to run the ball. Well, I mean, you go back in their heyday of those teams, right? They didn't have an elite wide receiver. And I know that's disrespectful to Doug and to Jermaine and to Golden, but they weren't considered elite. They're, good. Baldwin's very good. And do they look at that model and say, listen, that's how we want to play, and investing $30 million in a guy that plays wide receiver is not who we want to be?
Yeah, no, I think that would be like really idiotic on the Seahawks part. I just, I do, because I don't think like paying wide receivers and running the ball well are mutually exclusive, like team building strategies. We literally just saw the Philadelphia Eagles, who have 2 receivers making over $25 million a year, also employ the rushing champ, who was not on a rookie deal. Like, that's important too, because if they had just drafted the rushing champ on a 4th round contract, whatever, that'd be harder to replicate. No, they paid the rushing champ, just paid him again, had a good old line that they were paying, and paid receivers and paid their quarterback at the same time. And all of that is doable as long as your owner has cash on hand, which the Allen family does. So I just think that you don't have to separate the two. You can have DK, you can have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you can give Ken Walker the ball. You can pay all of these people. You can pay Geno, you can pay DK. You're really only paying one receiver at that point, would just be DK. Pay Geno. You're not paying anyone on the offensive line. Everyone currently is on a rookie contract. You're not really paying some of your best defenders, honestly, outside of Leonard Williams and Jay Love. So yeah, I don't think it has to be excluded. I think if that's the lesson that the Seahawks take away, like if John and the building are circling that, I think everyone should go. Like that's the wrong lesson to take away, I think, from when their last championship team.
What do you think that if we don't believe, and I agree with you, I don't think a first and a third is likely, but I don't know. I mean, I can look at AJ Brown and go, well, if AJ Brown got that, I could see maybe DK getting it. AJ Brown was younger, wasn't on the 2nd or 3rd deal that DK is going to be on. Does it fall in line more with what DeAndre Hopkins got? What the Cardinals had to give up to go get Hopkins. I guess it's hard to always judge the trades, right? Because they're not equal all the time, and you don't know what a team's willing to give up. A 1st round pick could be a late 1st round pick, which is and again, all 1st round picks aren't equal. Your best guess though would be what you think for him.
Yeah, so I think the closest thing I found to a comp, at least under this current CBA, is the Stephon Diggs deal that sent him to Buffalo. So Diggs at the time was on a 2nd round contract. Not a 2nd round contract, his 2nd deal. He had already got extended by Minnesota, so he wasn't on the rookie deal. So he was going into, I believe, his age 27 season. I think Diggs has a November birthday. DK is 27 currently, turns 28 in December. Their production over the last 2 seasons prior to getting traded was about the same. Diggs' last 2 years in Minnesota, DK's last 2 years in Seattle. I think that's the closest thing. The reason that Diggs got a 1st round pick from Buffalo, which I think was the 22nd pick in that draft, is because he had multiple years of team control. So I guess I would scale back the 1st round pick, because you really only get one with DK, and something in the high 2nd, like you get him to a bad team in the 2nd round, and then you add day 3 picks on top of that. That would be probably fair. I don't think the Seahawks would do that, but I think that would be what's fair per se.
What about the Raiders' 2nd round pick at 37 and what, a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick?
Yeah, so a story we have on The Athletic right now is I had my colleagues at the over there with me send in offers as if they were the GM. I think we got one from the Chargers, Bills, Patriots, Steelers. Everyone, I think I 7 offers. I play GM, and I go accept them. And then they all had to submit, if they wanted to, contract offers as well, because that matters too. You can't just give the trade compensation Seattle wants. You also have to pay DK, and he has to be willing to go play for your team. So everyone had to factor that in and send me over offers. Our Raiders offer, which is why I'm bringing this up, was a 2nd round pick in this draft, which is 37. They got next year 3rd round pick, and then they're willing to give DK, I think, $31 million a year which is what he wants. I think that's honestly, if I'm John Schneider, I'm probably still not doing that. However, if you are going to do it, that's probably the best you're going to get. It's basically the inverse or something very similar of the Dwayne Brown trade that they gave Houston, which was like a 2 and a 3 in consecutive drafts. So not the same draft. That's probably the best you're going to get. That satisfies DK, gets you back with Pete, gets him the bag. And then you get Seattle something where they can maybe say, oh, we can get an impact player with pick 37.
And that's all up at The Athletic right now. If you're not a subscriber, go subscribe to The Athletic, athletic.com. Michael-Shawn Dugar's piece up there with his colleagues at The Athletic, and we're sharing it on the screen. The Raiders' second-round pick this year, and then a third-round pick next year, and then a contract. You also list Kansas City on there. I'll be honest with you. I don't need to see him in Kansas City with Andy Reid. I don't need to see that.
I do think, though, selfishly, I'm not a Seahawks fan, so I'd be like, whatever, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we're going to talk about where he would go, the AFC, if the Seahawks are going to trade him, would be like far and away the ideal scenario. And not to say that he can't go to the NFC, but like John's not no dummy, man. He's been doing this for a long time. You want to avoid, if you're giving away like premier players, not like they gave up, the Bears like got Joe Tooney or whatever. Joe Tooney's like 32 or whatever the hell. Like, even if they had sent him to the AFC, Kansas City, you're probably not too worried about like seeing a left guard in your conference or whatever. But man, you got to see DK because you know you're sending him to a team that probably could be a contender, and you want to be one. So you avoid sending him to Green Bay, Washington, who I don't think sent me an offer, or maybe they did. I can't remember. But I think the AFC would be the preferred spot. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that that's where Russ went. That's where Frank Clark went. You know, you don't want to have to just keep seeing the dude, you know, that you gave up, particularly if he's a skill guy. I think that would be part of the math as well. It's part of why teams don't trade within a division. Typically, you don't want to have to keep seeing this cat, you know, especially if you know he's a good player. So honestly though, Puck, you know, I'm gonna think about this morning. I don't know if I even trust the current like setup to really get this right, you know. To be a contender, whether you keep DK or not, I'm just kind of losing faith the more and more
You're
I
losing
this,
faith
honestly.
in John Schneider.
The whole thing, though, because he doesn't scout alone. You know, for instance, they employ Steve Hutchinson to look at their O-linemen. They have for years. Does that seem like that's paying off at all? You know, I was thinking that when John talked about at the combine, he was like, yeah, it's going to help that we have these guys who have been evaluating offensive linemen and developing them at a high level for years. He was referring to John Benton and some of the other run game guys that are on Clint Kubiak's staff. And I was like, okay, maybe that helps. But it's like, you guys have also had one of the best we've seen evaluating too, and that hasn't helped. You know, I just think that I'm not really a big fan of the people who necessitate the rebuild being part of the fix. You know what I mean? Like if you were part of the problem, generally I'm not a big like be part of the solution. That's in any sport. Typically, you could apply that across whatever team sport you want. Not to say you can't fix it, but man, I just have a lot of faith. I lack faith, I should say, Puck, particularly if the philosophy has not changed. The philosophy that led to us being in this position has not shifted. Why should I think that you're just suddenly just going to get better at the thing you weren't good at to get us in this position, you know?
I've always wondered about the Hutchinson thing. I just can't. I don't understand it. He was so good, and like for people who don't know, I mean, he's been with the organization for, a while. Maybe you know the exact years, but
I don't know the exact, but it's years, multiple draft classes and stuff.
In charge of looking at offensive linemen, and maybe it's the old thing, Mike. You know, it's like the NBA sometimes. Maybe the guys who are really good just aren't good at finding talent. Because maybe it just came naturally to Steve Hutchinson. I don't know, but he hasn't been able to find any, you know, as long as he's been there and been in charge of kind of evaluating these offensive linemen, they've just been poor at it. So, yeah, that's always been a great mystery to me.
Me too, Puck. Me too, you know. And I will say this for John, his O-line's probably the worst position his staff has drafted at over the last like 15 years. Receiver might be his best, you know. I would say. I'd really have to dive into that. Maybe DB, but I wouldn't lump all DBs in one bucket. I would separate corners and safeties. But yeah, if you were to do that, receiver, you know, where you got Tate, where you got Lockett, where you got DK, you know, I think that's probably
you didn't draft Baldwin, but you signed him.
Yeah,
Right?
I
Baldwin
think
and Kirsch, right? They both were undrafted free agents, right? Rookie free
yeah,
agents.
yeah, and then P. Rich was probably a little too high, but he had injury
Yeah.
issues that it wasn't as much of a talent thing. But yeah, I think that's probably his best spot. Like if you were going to trust him to replace something, maybe that would be it. JSN, I can't believe how we forgot him, but
Yeah.
like the year Doug retired, they took 3 receivers in the draft. DK was one of them. John Arsua was the other. Gary Jennings was the other. Now that's 3 swings, obviously, but you got DK out of it. So that was immediate Doug replacement, so to speak. So I guess I should say that for John, if I poo-poo on some of the other stuff they've done, that is perhaps the only position I trust him to find the new guy right away.
Then draft,
Because
and then of course this year I think is right. The consensus is this class is down for receivers.
Yeah, that is. But the more I've looked at these guys, it really is. I feel this way about quarterback too, outside of Cam Ward. It really is just depends on what you are looking for. Like if you're looking for a number 1 guy, like if you're the Panthers and you're like, we need a number 1 receiver. No, this is probably not the draft class for you. But if you're the Cowboys, if you are the Seahawks in the event of a DK trade, if you're the Commanders, even after this Debo trade, you need a number 2 to complement the guy you got. I think this draft is full of those guys. And that's what you should be looking for anyway, outside of the first round.
I'm kind of with you on that one. Like is it the number 1 freak guy? Probably not, but
no.
And maybe you and I are going to be homers on this one. But when I look at like the big board for wide receivers and I see how far down like Kyle Williams is, and I go, that guy he's going to be a solid pro. He just will be. I think he'll play in the league for a long time. I mean, he's not a number 1 guy, but man, he's certainly good enough to be in the league for damn near 10 years, making an impact, I think.
And yeah, I agree. I actually just texted one of my friends who's a Houston Texans fan. I was like, because all their receivers' knees just went to hell this last offseason, unfortunately. Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs just couldn't by New Year's Day, neither one of them could walk. So I was like, oh, they need a receiver. I'm like, don't worry, you don't got to take the Missouri kid in the first round. You can if you want, but I would take a lineman and I would just go take Kyle Williams, man. Like he separates and he's got good hands. That's where I feel like we look at some of the, like you mentioned, like the freak stuff. We want AJ Browns and DKs and whatever, Megatrons or, even like the receiver equivalent of a Kyle Pitts, who's like big, strong, fast. Yeah. But my thing when I'm looking at receivers, do you separate from your guy? And do you have good hands? I can work with pretty much everything else. And if you're just going to be a contested catch guy, which I do think there's value, you better be the best at that. I would have took Drake London, for instance. Like he goes up and gets the ball at a very high level, even though he does not separate from his guys, but he's got the good hands. George Pickens, same thing. Like he's kind of a nut job, but like when that ball is in the air, George is going to go get it, even if he has to catch it upside down, So like if you're looking for specific things in receivers, I think this is your class. If you're a team who's like, we need a number 1 guy who's going to like be offensive player of the year type caliber, our Justin Jefferson, no, you're probably going to swing and miss. But if you just need a number 2, you need a Jordan Addison. Yeah, I think this draft has Jordan Addisons. It has those number 2 type of, it has Jalen Waddles. I know this is the first round pick, but I think it has the number 2 guy if that's what your team needs. And that's what Seattle would need in this instance.
You wrote about in that piece where you had all your colleagues put in the draft picks there or the trade scenarios for DK. Ultimately, you wrote at the end of it, you think he goes to
Las Vegas. I sent him to Vegas in that deal. I think that was by far the best deal that allows you to kind of get an impact player. Again, I wouldn't do it, but if you give me pick 37, you look at like what you can get in that range, you can expect with pick 37, you probably could get the highest graded player at insert position here on your board. That's not a quarterback. Typically, like depending on the year, you might be able to get, hey, he was the highest graded left tackle on our board. That's rare, but you could do it. You might be able to get the highest graded safety, the highest graded linebacker. Shouldn't take the highest graded running back, but you can. That's like where Ken Walker went, Boye, D Hall, there's a lot of examples of like, all right, we can get an impact player with that spot. Teams offering me a 3rd rounder. I was like, I might be lucky if that dude make the team, depending on who he is. So yeah, top 40 pick and a pick next year. If the Raiders go to hell, that pick's a little higher. Yeah, that's where I ended up going. I still wouldn't do that if I was a Seahawks, but I mean, for the sake of the exercise, that was easily the best offer.
What about Geno? What do you think happens with Geno Smith? Do you think ultimately the percentages say that he reworks a deal, reworks a deal extension in Seattle. Do they actively shop him? Garafolo saying that he knows the teams have called him. He knows specifically one team that's called. And again, that's not anything out of the ordinary in the NFL or in sports. Teams call about players all the time. There's always a great story about the Bulls. I think it was the Utah president or GM called Jerry Krause every year about Michael Jordan. What do you want from Michael Jordan? And knowing what the answer was going to be. But what do you think ultimately here in the next few weeks when it's deciding, right? He's got that deadline is March 16th for that bonus. Do you think a decision happens before then about the future of Geno Smith?
Yeah, this one's tough too. My guess would be that knowing what Geno feels about himself as a quarterback and how the Seahawks have kind of structured his last deal, which said a lot about how they felt about him. I could see them being kind of far apart, like the Rams and Stafford were. Like it sounds like Stafford walked in there and said, "Yo, I'm worth 50 million," and they said, "Oh, you think that, huh? All right, go out there and see if that's what you get." And he didn't. I think the Raiders offered him like 45 million a year, which was still more than the Rams were offering. I see a very similar scenario where Geno guy come in there like, "Oh, hey, if Kirk Cousins is making $45 million a year, what you think my guy is worth, around the same age and better?" And then I can see John being like, "You know what, you're right. But you go out there and see if that's what you get on the open market." Because that's really what, and this, Puck, when you're negotiating an extension, you're negotiating against a hypothetical free market, not an actual free market, a hypothetical one. That's why the Rams went out there and said, "Hell, you want a free market? Go out there. Let's see." And came back and didn't get anything worth a damn. I could see a similar scenario with Geno, where they're so far apart that maybe he does want to just play this out. I'm sure he likes security, but I don't know where the middle ground would be. I predict if they do extend him, maybe you get a $40 million a year deal, but that doesn't even have Geno like in the top 10. I could see Geno just playing out that deal reluctantly, unfortunately.
Let's say, and again, according at least how Mike Garafolo feels, and I'm curious, and I ask you the same question. You feel they will trade DK? Do you think it happens? He thinks it happens quickly. You share that sentiment?
Yeah, I think if it's going to happen, it happens by next Wednesday.
Okay,
I do. I think that's kind of like an unofficial deadline for it, because after that, money dries up. Teams make other moves at receiver.
And just remind me and people, that's when the league year starts officially, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the tampering, negotiating window, whatever, starts on Monday morning. But by Wednesday, that's when all these deals that we're hearing will become official, and that's when the official league year will start. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk through this. If you trade DK, why would you extend Geno Smith? What's the point of it? Good
question. I think that Geno should be viewed independent of what happens at receiver. He should be viewed relative to what else you would do at quarterback if you didn't. Like, that's kind of how I view his market. Because you're extending Geno because, one, you would think he was a good player, and two, you don't have a better option if you don't. That's kind of how I would view that. Who he's throwing to comes to a very distant third in that, because I think the protection is far more important. We've clearly seen that you could give him great receivers and it won't go great if he's on his ass, because his guards are getting walked backwards. So I would focus more on the QB market when viewing Geno. That's why you still extend him if you think he's a good player. You extend him because you think the veteran quarterback market sucks. You think you extend him because you don't like a Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Shador Sanders, whatever. Like, you extend him for those reasons. Because you feel like not only is this veteran market terrible, we don't even think that we could get like a potential successor in this draft class. So let's go ahead and invest in Geno for at least 2 more years. Those are the most important ways to view Geno. I think who he throws to, whether he throws to DK, is kind of whatever. Because I think Geno with protection he could spin it to me and you for a touchdown, Puck, if he's got long enough in the pocket.
Mike, I can't get open. There's Mike. I play basketball on Monday nights, Mike. It's Thursday. It's Thursday at 11:15. I'm going to get out of this chair in about 15 minutes, and you're going to hear my hips crack. I can't move. I can't move, and it's 3 days later. I cannot move.
No, I hear you. That's a fair question, though. I think a lot of Seahawks fans are wondering that. Like, should we just blow it up if we're going to get rid of
because aren't you
DK?
rebuilding? And I love how everyone thinks it's so negative. See, I think I push back on those who claim they aren't rebuilding. Now, you fired your entire staff, and went with a whole new coaching staff, that you are rebuilding in a sense, because there's no way a new staff was going to come in right away and then like 11, 12 wins and we're in the Super Bowl. That wasn't going to happen. So I guess I would wonder to them if they were already going to trade DK, aren't you admitting that we're taking a step back this year? We have to.
In theory, yes, but I don't think so. That's why I brought up how John felt the last time, because you could have made that argument trading Russ. And it was like, okay, and they just did not want to call that a rebuild. They were like, we still feel like we can win. We can now. I probably thought that they could win with like Drew Lock. That was probably their thought. Actually, not probably. That was their thought, because they didn't sign Geno for like another month. Right. Now, should that have been the thought? Heavens no. But it was, like first what we think should be the case versus how they're operating internally tends to be very different. I think trading DK is probably a sense of like, okay, we're going to take a step back here. But I would have made that same argument when they traded Frank ahead of the 2019 draft, and instead they ended up going into the divisional round of the playoffs.
I don't think this. I don't think you think this. Do you think that they think, and I just said think about 10 times there, that they can win with Sam Howell in this system?
If you'd asked me this last year, I would say yes. I think that the eye in the sky doesn't lie. And you could love Sam more than your own children, but you cannot watch that Green Bay game and just be convinced you got something there. You just can't. I asked John that at the combine. I said, do you see Sam as a starter? He said, I really want to see him in Clint's new offense. We didn't get a chance to. And that was John's nice way of saying no. No.
Okay, that's what you read it that way then. That's because that was the quote. That was the quote I was thinking of, because he wants to see. I would like to see him in this offense, and he wasn't healthy, and I don't like the offense he was in. It was straight drop back. We don't want to see him on the move. You took it as no, he's not good.
Not at least not currently. He's got if you still have to see it after he's already been in your building, that's probably a no. Because he wasn't good in that Green Bay game. And I think I'm projecting here on John's part, but we've now seen multiple instances of the backup quarterback kind of come in cold in Seattle and play better than Sam did. Geno came in cold for us and was fine. He wasn't like a world beater, but he came in 98-yard drive on the eventual Super Bowl champs. We've seen Drew Lock come in and play better than Sam did in multiple instances. And then even when Drew got a chance to start, he walked the Eagles down on Monday Night Football. We've seen similar quarterbacks come in the instance that Sam did, and no one looked as bad as Sam. And I know John can just not ignore that with a straight face.
This could be just a monumental offseason for this organization when you think about it, right? You trade DK, which you and Garafolo think is likely, more likely than not to happen and happen fast. Obviously, Tyler Lockett's gone. He's been released. And I don't think that any of us can certainly, with 100% certainty, agree or have a take that Geno Smith is back. I mean, think about the offensive changes to this team from a year ago, what we could see potentially as we start the season in 2025. You can see all three of those guys gone. Hell, I joked with Garafolo. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but you could see all three of them in the Raiders.
Yeah. You could see a big old Raider reunion or Seattle reunion in Las Vegas with DK there, Tyler there, Bobby Wagner there. I don't think Russ would go there. But like everyone else, I think could link up in the desert. And that's why I got to the losing faith thing. Like all the math you just did in your head right there to talk about how big the offseason is.
Too, for me.
I did that this morning and I was like, why do I trust anyone here to dig out of this? That's the thought that I have. And some of that comes to free agency. I think John and those guys were working with about $45 million in cap space at some point after they shed, all those contracts last year, got rid of Quandre, got rid of Jamal, cleared some cap space with some other guys. They were not penny pinching. Look what they brought back. A bunch of dudes who are not on the team and shouldn't be on the team. That's what worries me. It really does feel like a reset is needed. I felt like that last year. My only thing that gives me confidence, because I'm going to just pour a bunch of negativity onto your show. But I do
Wait a minute. People are used to it. Go ahead.
I'm trying. I just try to be real with the audience.
Not from you. But.
Well, I think we do that. We pour a lot of cold water on our Seahawks Man to Man podcast too, because we don't want to lie to the audience to sell them hope in March. We want people listening to us to feel like we're telling them honestly what we think based on either what I'm hearing or film we're watching. It's hard for me to do that sometimes. I'll watch film of a guy who stinks that they signed in free agency. I'm just like, I want to get in the audience and be like, oh, no, he could be all right if ABC. I'm going to tell him, nah, man.
It's just
He's
honest
got bad hips, he can't
evaluation,
cover.
though. That's what it should be. All right, you want to end on a positive note. That positive note is what?
I think that Mike Macdonald's going to be a really good head coach in the NFL. Like, I think that he's, of all the things that I can critique John and his guys for doing the last whatever years, I think they got that right. I think they got hiring Mike Macdonald right. I think he's a type of guy who can, for instance, but John was talking about like they got to be better at their evals at O-line. And I was like, okay, what do you got to change? You know, he was like, we got to be better at scouting the person. And he gave one of those John Schneider word salad answers that if you really boil it down is we need guys who are going to handle adversity better. Basically, like what happens when you're not the best athlete up front, like you were in the SEC or whatever? What happens when you get benched for a second? You know, what happens when you have to go through an injury? How are you going to respond? They got to find the better person. And I bring that up to say they got that with Mike. Mike is going to handle a 3-game losing streak without, you know, going crazy, scolding people, losing locker room, changing everything out of panic. No, Mike's a stick to the. He's got a philosophy, but he's also pliable when necessary. He'll change a travel schedule. He'll change the practice schedule. He'll go spend more time on special teams for a week and deviate from his normal schedule if that's what warrants. You know, he'll punt on a special teamer who keeps fumbling. You know, kickoff returns. He's pliable, but has a strong foundation. And I think that he can weather a storm as a head coach. I don't know if he'll get the roster around him to do it, but that is the one thing I think that if you're a Seahawks fan, you're like doom and gloom. It's March 5th or whatever, 6th. Everything, the sky is falling. I think Mike Macdonald's the type of guy who can weather a storm. I genuinely believe that.
Hey, real quick before we let you go, just give our audience an update on Ernest Jones, the surgery, and then what do you think about his about getting a deal done right when the league opens up?
Wow, that was quite the chain of events there. Where it's funny. I get a little background here. I don't usually do this, but so I saw Bob Condotta's report that the Ernest had offseason surgery. I'm not gonna question Bob's sources. I'm sure that was 100% accurate, right? But just so I have my own, I sent it to one of Ernest's agents. This is after it had been up for hours, and they didn't. I was like, hey, can you just confirm this? Sent him a screenshot of Bob's story. It didn't respond, but immediately went to Twitter and was like, hey, yo, you guys are framing this a certain way. Our guy, the surgery was a good thing. Like, what's going on here? So I found that very interesting that was because that happened like 2 minutes after I sent the text. And I just thought that their gripe being the framing was kind of interesting. I thought that felt very like two sides in the middle of a negotiation type of thing where it's like, oh man, the guy had knee surgery. Maybe we should pay him a little less. And they hop on like, yo, whoa. The knee surgery got him better.
He's fabulous now.
Yeah, you know how everybody's at training camp Puck. I feel like I'm back in my 20s. The greatest shape I've ever been in. You know, that's across sports. Anyway, I bring that up to say that told me that the negotiations are probably not going as smooth as we would like. You usually don't leak things about a guy having a surgery, right? when you're confident in paying him whatever. So that was a red flag for me. I would still imagine a deal gets done because if Ernest does hit the open market, for better or worse, teams are going to be worried about your knee. And if they can't get you a physical and get guys, their doctors to get a hand on you, maybe they don't pay you 14, 15 million or whatever you're looking for. So I do think a deal gets done either Monday or Tuesday of next week, but that was a red flag for me. What happened yesterday with Bob's report, his agent's reaction to it, public reaction to it, didn't just call John and yell, or call Bob and yell. He was like, let me hop on Twitter and do this. Yeah. And Ernest's reply to a fan that I saw this morning that lamented his knee injury. And Ernest was like, well, my knee wasn't a problem when I came here and fixed the defense. I'm paraphrasing, but Ernest did tweet that. So yeah, that lets me know things are not going super well. But I don't think things have to go super well the whole time for teams to get to the finish line. Yeah. I've heard of agents and cap guys screaming at each other, top of their lungs, motherfucking each other, and then they get a deal done. Like that happened with like Russ's guys. Cuss them out all he wants, but then Russ would become like the second highest paid quarterback in the league. So I think something gets done. I think Ernest probably gets paid like a fringe top 10 inside linebacker, which he is, in my opinion. But it does seem like it got a little messy here, and it probably will be messy until next week.
All right, that was a good lot of packed with a lot of information there, Mike. Michael-Shawn Dugar from The Athletic. Go check all of his work up at The Athletic, including trade scenarios for DK Metcalf. He believes, like Garafolo, trade is going to happen with DK. Thinks it's going to happen to the Raiders and thinks it's going to happen quickly. Well, I shouldn't say thinks it's going to go to the Raiders. Of the trade scenarios that was presented in the piece, that would be the most likely
I do think, for what it's worth, Puck, he would probably they would be the most they're the combination of like desperate plus familiarity.
I got you.
I think that they would pay $30 million for DK because you think about it, $30 million for DK, depending on how your roster looks, he's probably your highest paid player, and if not, he's probably your highest paid offensive player. And teams, you got to be worried about doing that. Seahawks made that mistake with Percy Harvin, made him the highest paid guy. He hadn't played a snap. You know, 100%. Teams are scared of doing that generally, unless you got Pete Carroll in the building and you can speak to DK's at the person. Right. And I think that's why they're the ideal fit that everyone is projecting.
And give us the latest Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast.
Yes, we just did a mock free agency, kind of trying to fix the Seahawks well within the budget. We did that with the homie Derek Klassen, one of our national writers, a big film nerd, so he knows what he's talking about. That's up now. It's called Big Game Hunting, up on all podcast platforms. We're going to do a free agency episode next week. I want to see how things filter out. We don't have an emergency DK episode quite yet. I want to work the phones a little bit more before I speak on that definitively. But yeah, we got that up now, and then next week we'll do our free agency show.
Great stuff, Mike. We'll talk next week.
All right, Puck. Appreciate you having me.
Michael-Shawn Dugar every single week. Our NFL Thursday shows with Garafolo and Michael-Shawn Dugar. Man, just a packed past hour and a half with both those guys. Big thanks to our sponsors for Michael-Shawn Dugar, our sponsor, I should say, for Dugar. That would be, of course, Georgetown's new Tavern Beer. Go check it out. Easy drinking, domestic style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops, 4.2%, brewed by our good friends at Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's Pale Ale, the Bodhisattva IPA, of course, Rogers Pilsner there as well. You can see it right over my shoulder. Can you see the tap handle and then the koozie, or not the koozie, but the what the hell do you call that? Not the koozie, the coaster. There it is. So you can see it right there next to Hulk Hogan and the Maple Valley Raiders helmet. Come on, let's go. Big thanks to Georgetown Brewery for bringing you Michael-Shawn Dugar every single week. And also big thanks to Hartley & Hartley Insurance and Zogs on Fox Island for Mike Garafolo. A newsy 90 minutes. 90 minutes with no commercials, by the way, other than, quick little reads. Yeah, think about that. Huh? Yeah, make your choice. What do you want? Lots to unpack. If you came in late, you are going to want to go back and listen and watch both of Michael-Shawn Dugar's and Mike Garafolo's appearance today. Both will be podcast separately, along with the entire Daily Puck Drop up on YouTube. But for YouTube, for Garafolo and Dugar, we'll put up separate video posts as well, in addition to including them into the Daily Puck Drop. For the audio fan club, so for Apple and Spotify and your favorite podcast platform, they will just be a part of the Daily Puck Drop. As we always do, we timestamp it. So if you want to fast forward to both of those podcasts or interviews, you can. But again, both in agreement, Dugar and Garafolo, that DK Metcalf will be traded, that it will happen fast, and that Las Vegas appears to be, at least according to them, to the destination. Garafolo citing 3 teams are in the lead. The favorites, that being Las Vegas, Carolina, and Green Bay. Vegas owns, again, the 6th overall pick, but they're not going to get that. I mean, I don't think they're going to get that. But the 37th overall pick there in the 2nd round. Green Bay, the 23rd pick. Hold on, give me a second. Where is Carolina? I should know this. Hold on. Let me backtrack here on this one. Carolina's at 8th. In the 1st round. Likely not going to get that, but they have, do they not have a 2nd round pick? They have a 3rd round pick, 74th overall. So I don't know, maybe Carolina. What if Carolina gets desperate enough at 8? That'd be something else. So big news there today on the show in regards to Geno Smith. What Garafolo told us earlier about Geno Smith. Teams have been calling for Geno Smith via a trade. Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network again with me saying, quote, yes, I'm confident that teams have called about Geno. And he says, I know one team, would not name it, specifically that has called about Geno Smith. So what an offseason this could be for the Seahawks. DK potentially being gone. But again, still could come back. Lockett definitely is gone. And Garafolo saying that it is probably 100%, I think he said 1,000% certainty that he ends up in Las Vegas. At least that was the talk at the Combine. And potentially Geno Smith could be gone. Man, Jesus. This NFL, there is no offseason for it. That's for sure. That's why we have those guys, Michael-Shawn Dugar and Mike Garafolo, with us throughout the offseason. All right, well, let's wrap up a very busy daily puck drop today with Hey What the Puck. It's brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. It is your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com. North Seattle franchise. I'm going to have a quick comment here in a second. About everything that's happened today. I do want to give an update. It's my favorite timing. I love. It is a regret of mine. There's the one regret I have not worked. There really is just one of not working in radio anymore. The one regret is not being on the call for the high school state championship because I love this week in the Tacoma Dome. I'm going to go down there on Friday. I love it. It's the best. I used to not like that they had both the girls and boys there playing at the same time in two courts, but then I just grew to love it. Right now, so it's going on right now. If you get down there and support them, I know it's a long drive, but go down and watch some high school talent. 4A boys are on right now. I think Glacier Peak defeated Camas earlier today, 44-42. Make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yeah, I'm looking at the boys. Gonzaga Prep currently is trailing Auburn. These probably are down. Coming up later is West Valley and Richland. Puyallup and Mount Si coming up later today. The 3A boys side, which again, for our state, it's always the 3A boys. That's the premier conference or league. And then we've got all the metro teams on one side of the bracket, which is amazing. But Lincoln and Edmonds Woodway coming up later. Bellarmine Prep, Mount Spokane. And then later tonight, Bellevue and Garfield. That should be a great game. Seattle Prep and Beach. Just going to be just a bloodbath. And to see, I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go on Friday. I want to see Beach and Garfield. Who doesn't want to see Beach and Garfield? I mean, majority of the people will want to see that. The 4A or the 2A boys. I'm bringing up the 2A boys because it's happening in Yakima. Over in Yakima at the Sundome. I bring this up. I tweeted this out earlier. I worked for a year in Longview, Washington, covering high school sports and broadcasting R.A. Long High School. And I mentioned this. One of the best rivalries I've ever seen, ever, in any sport, professional, college, high school, was R.A. Long, the Lumberjacks, against the Mark Morris Monarchs. And it's fab. It divides this community. There's an element of rich, poor, white class, white collar, blue collar element to it. It's great. The gyms, when we would do the boys' games, packed. The girls' games, packed. Football games, packed. It was awesome. It's what you expect from high school sports from a small town. The entire town shuts down. It just shuts down. And so Mark Morris and R.A. Long are playing in the quarterfinals coming up by later today. So that's going to be awesome and just kind of near and dear to my heart. On the girls' side, 4A side, just to give it recognition, Auburn, Woodinville coming up later, Sumner, Camas, Glacier, Pika, and Chiawana, Lake Washington, and Davis. And then on the 3A 3A girls' side, we should have the Garfield and Stanwood, Kennewick, Central Valley, Lakeside, Seattle Prep, Bellevue, and North Thurston. Good luck to all the boys and girls high school basketball players. Taking place at the Tacoma Dome, the WIAA state tournament, which is just a fabulous event. We have so much basketball talent in this state. It's unreal how much basketball talent we have in around the state, especially in the city. All right, one last note on Hey What the Puck, brought to you again by Restoration One of North Seattle. I mean, the Seahawks can say whatever they want. If they do trade DK Metcalf, I mean, they are in a rebuild. They are. a 100% rebuild. They can call it whatever they want. You can dress it up any way you want, but you trade one of the top, physically and production-wise, one of the top wide receivers in the league. You trade them, you're rebuilding. You are. They trade them. They're not better off by trading them. I mean, not immediately. No way they are. And then, as Dugar and I talked about, if they do trade him, which, again, most people feel they will, I don't see why you keep Geno Smith. I really just don't would not understand it. Wouldn't get it one bit. Doesn't make sense to me. I would move him immediately then. If you've got a offer on the table for him, I'd move him. Because I just certainly don't agree with doing anything where you extend him at all. Because you've taken away one of his top targets. Why invest any more money in the quarterback? You know he's not the quarterback of the future. So if you're going to trade DK, then tear it down. Tear it down, rebuild, get younger at that quarterback position, take your lumps, and we'll see where we're at. You want to get back to a physical style of football that you've talked about, running the ball, defense, getting the crowd back into it. Look at those teams that won the Super Bowl playing for a Super Bowl championship. It's done. They didn't have an elite wide receiver. Not one on the roster. And they still won because they played a different style of football and a brand of football. That brand of football does not have you paying the amount of money to a wide receiver nor to a quarterback of that ilk. All right, that's Hey What the Puck. Again, brought to you by Restoration One there of North Seattle. Restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when those damages affect your residential property. Again, give them a call, 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Thank you for watching today's and listening to today's Daily Punch Drop. Big thanks to all of our sponsors, Lindback Lumber, in addition to Hartley and Hartley Insurance, Zogs on Fox Island, Georgetown Brewery. Of course, check out their new tavern beer at your local bar and at the brewery, Georgetown Brewery, georgetownbeer.com. And, of course, always big thanks to Restoration One. Today's Daily Puck Drop will be up on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Also find the DPD on your favorite podcast platforms and up at pucksports.com. When you're at pucksports.com, please sign up to be a member of the Pucks Posse. $5 a month. You support all the free content and the VIP and exclusive content we do as well, like our baseball coverage with Brian Divish. It was fantastic yesterday, reacting to Justin Turner's comments, the full 50 minutes up on, go to pucksports.com, and it'll take you to the Patreon page, full 50 minutes audio and video. Also, episode 2 of our 7-part series, our NFL draft coverage with Dane Brugler from The Athletic, and a brand new show that will be starting the week of opening day, and I promise you, you will thoroughly enjoy and love the new show. So thank you for watching and listening always, and then always thank you for the support. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Friday edition. It's our fun Friday, by the way. Egan and Jim Moore together. Also, will not be a part. This will be free. This won't be for Pucks Posse members, but I do have a new feature that we'll introduce tomorrow as well. A part of the kind of the weekly rotation, I think. May not quite be weekly, bi-weekly, or every now and again. But it's an idea that I stole from the old David Locke from back in the day. And it's titled The Scout. I have a longtime baseball scout that will be joining the Daily Puck Drop every now and again to give his unbiased take on your Seattle Mariners. But his identity and his name will be anonymous. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!